everybody. Thank you for tuning in. You've reached the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS AM 1220, FM 98.1. It's Friday, a little after 10, so it's time for the show. So I want to get you guys into this day. It's going to be a really good show. Got a lot of stuff to go over today. We're going to talk about sort of the headlines, kind of where we're at with the market, and 4 headlines will tell that story. Then we're going to get into all things foreclosure defense today. The laws have changed rather dramatically. Those of you who watch the show, and I appreciate it if you do, know that there are 2 very, very, very big changes in the foreclosure landscape in California that have taken place in the last 90 days. And it is a big, big deal. And we're already using these laws in my office to save people's houses. And this is a huge change in the way foreclosures are handled in the state of California. So I scream all the time when politicians get stuff wrong. So it seems only fair that I do something when they do it right. So, and this they've done right, which is good. So today's going to be a little market stuff. If time permitting, we'll get into some stuff with the Public Utilities Commission and the way they turn power off and on, particularly in places like Leona Valley and Green Valley and Lake Elizabeth, et cetera, et cetera. So we may get into that. I don't have time today, but we may get into that today as well. But definitely going to get into the market. So let's start there. Here's what's going on in the real estate market. I'm going to give you some nationwide stuff, and we'll talk about some stuff that's just local to us, to here in the Santa Cruz Valley in Southern California. But let's start. Here's the entire real estate market in 4 headlines. First one, buyers are back in charge as real estate market cools. Majority of U.S. homes now selling below asking price. This is a story out of the New York Post about 3 days ago. According to new data from the real estate analytics firm Cotality, more than half of the U.S. homes sold in May went for less than their asking price, giving buyers a rare shot at calling the shots. The typical sale closed $45,000 under list, and at 56% of deals landed below asking, according to this report. So think about all the houses that are currently on the market. Think about the signs you see driving home and that sort of thing. And keep in mind, right now, on average in the United States, the average seller is selling $45,000 under asking, which sounds high to me. And 56% of the houses out there, including all the ones you see driving back and forth, the ones you worry about, go on Realtor.com or any of the services that you see, 56% of those right now is selling under asking price. So if your house is listed for $1 million, which is pretty average sales price in Santa Cruz Valley, chances are pretty good you're going to sell it for about $950. If it's everything else being equal. Now, I don't think our numbers are quite as steep. I don't think we're selling, 56% of houses are selling under list price in Santa Cruz Valley. But they are selling under list because the market is softening. I've been telling you guys this for, almost a year now, that the market is softening. The interest rates are too high. Prices are too high. It had to turn the other way. That's another thing it started. So let's talk about some others. Housing market cools as inventory surges 29% nationwide. That's from the good folks at Money Talks at CNN. Home prices declined in nearly 1/3 of major U.S. markets as inventory surges and mortgage rates remain elevated in the 6% plus range, which represents the slowest price growth that we have seen in the housing sector in the last 2 years. What does that mean? Same thing. More properties coming to market. It's basic supply and demand. And again, this is not prophecy, it's just math. Supply and demand. More houses are coming to market. 29% surge in listings nationwide. In California, it's worse. We got about 40%. Think about this for a second. There are 40% more houses on the market right now than there were in California 90 days ago. That's a lot. I mean, if you're in the widget business and suddenly a bunch of widgets come to market, prices on widgets are going down. Subtract substitute houses for widgets, and there you go. Housing prices are coming down. Now, you don't have to be Chicken Little. You know, if the sky isn't falling, it's going to be fine. It's not 2008. It's not a crisis, at least not yet. We hope it doesn't get to be one. But I don't think there's much of a question that the real estate market has been in a recession since at least the beginning of this year, if not all of 2024 as well. And that has to do with volume more than anything else. And finally, the prices are catching up to what the rest of the economy on housing is doing. Prices are coming down. Again, just supply and demand. When you have whatever the commodity, when you have a flood of inventory come on the market, whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is that's being sold, whatever the commodity is, you have a flood of it coming to market, and the price to buy that commodity also has gone up, not just because of the price, but because the interest rate necessary to buy that commodity. It's going to send prices down. That is the math. You cannot have interest rates go up and prices go up at the same time. Something has got to give. And until and unless the interest rate gets under 6%, probably somewhere around 5.5%, we're not going to see normality in the market. It's going to be volatile until that day comes. So that is where we are at. Housing prices are coming down. They just are. Buyers have gotten the short end of the stick for the last roughly decade, and now buyers got more options. Because if you're looking to buy a house right now, here are 2 things you ought to know. The more time that goes by, the more options you're going to have, and also probably pretty likely the lower the interest rate's going to be. So if you're a buyer, waiting right now is not a bad thing. Now, having said that, if you find the perfect house and you're good to go, buy it. You're never going to time the market perfectly. It doesn't work that way. We're also not looking at massive price drops. We've lost about 2% here in the Santa Cruz Valley and most of Southern California over this year, and we're probably going to lose another 1 to 2% by the end of the year. So I figure we'll have about a 3 to 4% drop over 2025 on average, which is not great. I mean, but it is a drop. It's going to feel more like 10% because people are used to the markets going up. And they're not. Everything is tied to the interest rates. Let's talk about the next one. Mortgage rates slipped to lowest level of 2025. This is the Wall Street Journal just yesterday. Mortgage rates edged down to their lowest level of the year, offering a dash of hope to prospective buyers who have been forced to the sidelines by elevated rates and home prices. The average rate on the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage declined to 6.58%, according to a survey of lenders by the mortgage finance firm Freddie Mac. That was the low not seen since October of 2024, down from 6.63 a week ago. Now, keep in mind, the Fed has not lowered the interest rate. This is yet another example of the market being ahead of the Fed. Everybody's ahead of the Fed. The Fed, I mean, I don't agree with Trump about much, but I absolutely agree with him about the Fed being way too slow to react. I don't think you fire the head of the Fed. I think that creates other problems. But I'm not a Jerome Powell fan. I doubt I'm going to. I mean, he was nominated by Trump. I think Trump's economic acumen is wanting, and he put him in there. He's done a horrible job. I don't think anybody he replaces him with is going to be any better. So the Fed has not lowered the interest rate. They haven't raised it at the last meeting either. They're going to lower it in September. The Fed has no choice but to lower it in September. The market knows that. It has to do with the bad jobs reports, which of course now we've just replaced the head of the agency that reports that, so that'll be fun as time goes on. But we got a lot of bad news across the board as far as jobs are concerned, so the interest rate's going to come down. The market's just gotten ahead of it a little bit. Don't be surprised if we get under 6.5 by the end of the month. I think that's going to happen. But if not, it'll be the following month. But it's going to trend down for a while. Next one, what falling mortgage rates mean for the American home buyer. And this is Newsweek just yesterday. Mortgage rates are falling despite the Federal Reserve's reluctance to introduce new cuts over the past 8 months, giving American home buyers more purchasing power at a time when the market is slowly shifting to their favor. The weaker than expected jobs report has caused Treasury yields to tumble over the last week as concerns over the future of the U.S. economy were revamped among investors, who are now betting that the central bank will cut interest rates next month. That is one of the safest bets you can make in real estate right now, is that they're going to cut in September. They really have no choice. How much? That's an interesting bet. My bet is it's only going to be about a quarter point. Should be a half or more. It would be nice to be a full point, but I think we're going to get about a quarter, maybe a half if we're lucky, but probably just a quarter point out of it. And I don't think the market's going to react to it because the market will have already reacted. The market will have already come down a bit. So we'll see. But the trend is going in the right direction if you're a buyer. And if you're a seller, and I've been saying this now for a year, you better be a deal. If your house isn't a deal, it's not going to sell. It's that simple. Now, it doesn't have to be a deal necessarily because of the economics of it, although that plays heavily into it, of course. Maybe it's a deal because yours is the only one with a remodeled kitchen. Yours is the only one with a view. Yours is the only one with RV parking. Whatever it is, you better have that hook. Otherwise, your house is not going to sell. So if it's not pricing, it better be something else. So that's kind of where we're at with the market. The market is softening. Prices are starting to go down, and so is the interest rate. So again, if you're a buyer, this is all good news. If you're a seller, this is all tragically bad news. So, well, maybe not tragically, but it's bad news. So get ahead of the curve. You can still make it work for you. Okay, so for the rest of the show, we're going to be talking about all things foreclosure. Today is all things foreclosure. What to do if you get a foreclosure, how to handle it, what you need to do, how you need to deal with the bank, what your options are. It's going to give you an outline of all things foreclosure. Now, what I would suggest is if you find yourself in that position, just give me a call. I'll help you out. I do it for free. I walk people out of foreclosures all day long. It's how I got a radio show, is because complaining about this the last 30 years. The way foreclosures are handled, particularly in California, is ridiculous. It's gotten a little bit better. We had a lot of stuff happen in 2008 through 10, which made it a little bit better because it was the wild, wild west prior to that, but didn't do enough. And we have another slate of laws that came through, 2 of them in particular, that came through in just the last 90 days that's helping as well. So all these little things help, but nobody really goes at the problem entirely. It's just sort of the way politics work in this state, and I think others as well. But so first of all, if you are in a foreclosure, give me a call. If you think you're going to wind up in foreclosure, if you cannot make your mortgage payment, whatever's going on, give me a call. I'm here to fix it. And I do it for free. My number again, and I give this out on the air every week, 661-714-1400. That's my personal cell phone. I do my best to answer that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Again, 661-714-1400. 661 714-1400 is my cell phone. You can reach me at that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If for some reason I don't answer, please send me a text and I will call you back as soon as I can. I like my job a lot. I'm very good at it. I've been doing it for a very long time, and I kind of do it 24/7. I always sort of have. It's really more who I am than what I do, and has been for a long time. But I've been spending 30 years fighting foreclosures for free for people, so I know a few things about it. So let's get into it. How do foreclosures work in California? This, honestly, I get this question more than any other. I'm very surprised that people don't know this stuff because I'm so in it every day, all day, and there's so many sources out there. A lot of this list is coming directly from the CFPB. Foreclosure process differ from state to state. They are generally done in two ways. If done by filing a lawsuit, it's called a judicial foreclosure. In some states, the lender can also foreclose without going to court. California is a non-judicial state. It's important stuff. It means you don't have to go to a court to do a foreclosure. They can do what's called a non-judicial foreclosure, which means the court certifies it, but the court doesn't actually run it. You don't actually appear in court for anything. It's much faster. Now, the basic difference, just to give you the layman's terms, a non-judicial foreclosure is going to go a lot faster. It's going to cost the bank or the foreclosing party somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000, maybe $3,000 to kind of get it done. And it's going to happen. They're going to file. There's a time frame, so I'm going to in a minute. In California, cost about 10 times as much, take many, many months, if not years. If the bank threatens you with a judicial foreclosure, my advice is to tell them to go ahead and roll it out because that process is going to take a long time. My guess is the average judicial foreclosure in California right now is running anywhere around 2 years to 3 years to get done, whereas a non-judicial foreclosure. So if you're a foreclosing party, if you're a bank or an investor and you're going to foreclose in California, you're not going to do it judicially unless you have serious reason to. And I could go over why, but I won't bore you with it, what might cause it, because you're just not going to choose that. It would cost you much, much more money and take much, much longer. So everyone goes non-judicial. So most of the advice I'm going to has to do with non-judicial foreclosures. That's the difference. So let's talk about the time frame in California for non-judicial foreclosures. Okay, they're both state and federal laws that govern how foreclosures work. Most of them are state, a lot of them are federal. So let's talk about just what goes on in a foreclosure, just the timeline, because this is the most important thing that everybody wants to know. Starting with, if you do not make your mortgage payment, in California, the banks are going to wait, the servicers are going to wait 120 days minimum before they do anything. They'll send you a notice of intent to accelerate, and they'll send you a lot of threatening letters and things like that. They may even call you. But ultimately, they're not going to do anything because they can't for 120 days. You got 4 months worth of grace period there. So if you run through the 120 days, on the day number 121 or shortly thereafter, the bank is going to file what's called an NOD. Stands for Notice of Default. And it's a big deal. The NOD is the bank telling the court and telling you that they are foreclosing on your house. Now, it is a lawsuit. It's not the same as a judicial foreclosure. You're not going to appear in court, but that is going to happen. They submitted their documents to the court. They swore to the court under penalty of perjury, this is the bank or the servicer, that the information is correct, and the court said okie doke and posted it, and now you're in foreclosure. So they're going to wait 120 days before they file anything. Then shortly after that 120 days, sometimes on the 121st day, the bank or the servicer is going to file a notice of default. Now, a notice of default has to be seasoned for 90 days. This is the law. It's not up to interpretation. The law is 90 days, and it's calendar days, so weekends count too. 90 days. Now, once the bank has waited 90 days after filing a notice of default, they will then on the 91st day or thereafter, some banks wait longer, they'll file what's called an NOS, a notice of sale. And that's going to be 21 days. Technically, it's 20 days, and they hold it on the first day, but 21 days. So you have 90 days, plus you have 21 days. So you got about 3 3/4 months. You got just under 4 months if the bank's putting the pedal down from the time they file the NOD. So again, 120 days after delinquency, 90 days after they file an NOD, 21 days after the NOS. That's the short track to foreclosure. So we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 months, 3 weeks, typically, before a bank can foreclose if they're really after you. Now, usually it takes a little bit longer than that. Usually it takes 8 to 10 months, but they can do it in 7 months and 3 weeks from the time you miss a payment. So what has changed? And these are a big deal. The biggest change we've had as far as the foreclosure timeline, and I got to thank Pilar Schiavo for this, our Assemblywoman. She did a fantastic job, in my opinion, on a bill was called AB 2424. AB is when it just stands for the bill, the name of the bill, that when it goes through the California legislature, and it is now civil. That bill is now manifest. I'm just giving you this so you can look it up on the internet. Look up AB 2424. It'll tell you what it is. But it is now manifested as a Civil Code 2923.5, 2923.55, 2924F, and 2932.2. Now that's going to be a big deal if you look into this stuff up yourself. That's why I'm giving you the civil code so you can look it up. If you need help with this, give me a call. I'll be happy to help. If you need an attorney, my wife's a real estate attorney. She comes on the show all the time. I'm sure she'll be willing to help you as well. I'll volunteer for more pro bono work. She loves it when I do that. Hi, honey. Right. So AB 2424, these new civil codes, what that does is it effectively extends the foreclosure time frame, if you use it correctly, by 80 days. You could even argue 90. What it says is that, we're going to go over this again before the end of the show a little bit. What it says is that if you present the trustee, that's who's handling the foreclosure sale, with a valid listing contract drafted with a licensed California broker, which I am, I'm a licensed real estate salesperson, I can do this. They have to give you 45 days. They have to postpone the foreclosure sale date, and you have to do it in excess of 5 days. So if your sale date is on the 6th, the 1st is going to be your last option to do this. So they will give you an additional 45 days. They have to. It's the law. That's what this law became. AB 2424. That's what it became. So they have to give you an additional 45 days. Then, if you are 6 days or greater, so outside of 5 days, from the new scheduled sale date, and you present them with a fully executed purchase contract, and they'll also need some stuff from escrow, they'll postpone it another 45 days. So you effectively get you lose 5 days coming and going, but you effectively get 80 days on top of what was already a 111-day process from the NOD. That is a big, big deal. And I will tell you, in my office, we are already using this. We've postponed about a dozen sales so far, just in the last 3 months, using AB, what we refer to it in the office as AB 2424 because it's easier to remember that than the civil codes. We're referring to them as 2424 cases. And it postpones foreclosures. Now, you're supposed to only postpone to sell the house, but you absolutely can use the same law to postpone. It's a little bit of a bending of it, not breaking it, bending of it. You can use this same law to bend the law to get an additional 45 days to work on your foreclosure prevention. So it's a pretty important tool to have in the kit. So again, delinquency, 120 days from when you stop making the payment. Then they're going to file an NOD, then that's going to be 90 days. Then they're going to file an NOS, that's going to give you 21 days, and on the 21st day or thereafter, they will then schedule and conduct the foreclosure sale. Once the sale happens in California, you're done. It's really, really hard to reverse a sale. It's not impossible, we've done it, but it is really, really difficult. It's time-consuming and it's expensive. It is absolutely critical that if you have a foreclosure sale, you get into the defense of that sale as quick as you can. Time is not on your side ever. Ever, 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 ever. So that is what a foreclosure is. That's what's going on in the market. I think we'll take a break here from some of the advertisers, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about specifically if you cannot pay your mortgage payment, what are the steps that you take? And I'm going to be real specific about it, and then we're going to talk about scam warnings and a few other things. So listen to the break. When we come back, it's going to be all about what do you do if you cannot pay your mortgage. I realize this may not be the sexiest thing to talk about over the radio at the moment, but if you are in foreclosure, this is incredibly important. If you have a friend in foreclosure, and by the way, we are seeing many, many, many more foreclosures in my office. I would say the numbers have almost doubled just in the last 90 days because the market's stalling. So we're seeing more banks acting more aggressively. We are seeing more and more of these. If you are on the bubble at all, you're going to want to call me and get into this defense as soon as you possibly can. And I'll explain why when we get back from the break. So please listen to the break, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to the break. You've reached the Real Estate Fix on KHTS, AM 1220, 98.1 FM. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. We've been doing today over all things foreclosure. I specialize in foreclosure defense. I do it for free, so if you're in trouble, you can call me anytime. I'll be happy to help you out. Sometimes it's just advice. Sometimes we'll take files. We're happy to help walk you through it from start to finish. Whatever you need, the objective here is to keep you in your home. And again, we do this for free. Nothing against those people who charge for this thing. I just don't feel it's right to do that. I'm very lucky that I have a pretty good real estate practice. I've been at this for 34 years now, built up a decent clientele, so I can afford to do this sort of thing for free. Also, a lot of the people who help wind up coming back 3, 4, 5 years later. They send their friends and relatives. It's a pay-it-forward business model, and it works really well for us. I think anybody who's charging for loan modifications, there are some who do it quite well, some attorneys I know, but they're expensive. And if you had the money, in my case, most of my clients, they would have made another mortgage payment. So my clients couldn't afford me anyway, so we just started doing it for free all those years ago and have been doing it ever since. And so, yeah, if you're in trouble with foreclosure or anything else, please give me a call, 661-714-1400. Do that slower, 661-714-1400. Also a snazzy new website, richszerman.com. My last name is spelled funny. It's S as in sugar, Z as in zebra, E-R-M-A-N. So it's Sherman. There's just a Z where the H belongs. It is pronounced Sherman, though. This is with Russian ancestry or Polish ancestry. Anyway, you can look at the website as well for a lot of this stuff. So, but we were going over foreclosures. We went to break. We talked about what a foreclosure is and kind of what a non-judicial versus judicial is. Almost all foreclosures in California are non-judicial for good reason, which we won't go over again, but you can always call and ask me. And we talked about a new law that changed recently that gives us more time. So we had an 111-day time period without being able to extend it, although we can usually. And we just got an extra 80 days that we can use, 90 days that we can use, thanks to the very, very good efforts of Pilar Schiavo. So thank you again for that, Pilar. So I've been waiting for legislation like this for almost 30 years, so I'm feeling pretty thankful about it because it's made a big difference in my practice, and we've already saved a lot of houses using that. So AB 2424, big deal. So so let's talk about ground level stuff. If you find yourself in a position where you cannot pay your mortgage, what do you do? All right, so let's say August you made the payment, but you know you're not making that September payment. You know 2 weeks from now you're not making your mortgage payment, you're not making the one after that. What do you do? Well, what I would suggest is give me a call, because there's a lot of planning I can help you do. And again, you can call me at 714-1400-661. Or you can reach me through the web or through the station here, however. But get a hold of me, and I'll walk you through this, because every situation is slightly different. But in general, the first thing you want to do is call your mortgage servicer. And for goodness sake, please be prepared to take good notes. You want to call them up. You want to write down the day and time. You want to write down the phone number you called, and you want to write down who you talked to. And if you talk to somebody at Bank of America and they say, my name is Bob, you say, Bob, it's very nice to meet you. Can I please have your last name or employee number? Because I have a feeling there's a lot of people named Bob who work at Bank of America, and I'd like to be able to reference you if I need to. So make sure you get that last name or you get an employee ID number, something that identifies the person you're talking to. And then you take notes. My staff, we do it date, time underneath the date, 2 or 3 sentences about what went on, and good enough. Phone numbers and things like that to identify, good enough. But take notes. They will ask when you call in, so be prepared for these questions. Why are you unable to make your mortgage payment? You can answer that any way you want. It's not written in blood. It's not written in stone. It's not a law. Because I can't afford it. I lost my job. I don't know. I've got a methamphetamine habit. I'll probably not go with that one. But you can give them pretty much any excuse because it doesn't really matter. But think it through. You're going to get this question. And don't prattle on about it. They don't need your life story. Really, all they need to know is that you're not making the payment. That's really the only salient fact. The rest of it, I'd rather you leave out until we're ready to put together a hardship letter. But if you want to tell them, because they're going to ask, just tell them I'm having a hard time making the mortgage payment because, and keep it simple. I'm not making as much money as I was before. I'm out of work right now and I'm trying to get another one. I've had a medical emergency in my family. Whatever it is, but keep it short. If it takes more than 2 sentences, find a way to get it down to 2 sentences because you're telling them too much. 2 sentences, that's it. Where you're not able to make your payment, just because. That's fine too, because the world is a cold and cruel place and I don't have any money. Whatever. You're going to present a hardship letter, and that's where you get into much more detail. And they don't really care about your reason. They really don't, by and large, just so you're having one. Okay, next question. Whether the problem is temporary or permanent. Every time you talk to the bank, please hear me when I say this, it is temporary. I lost my job and I'm getting another one. It is temporary. I was in the hospital with brain surgery, but now I'm better. It is temporary. My mom died, but I'm getting money from my aunt. Whatever the heck it needs to be, you need to fashion it as temporary. If you tell them that it is permanent, in most cases, we're just going to have to figure out a way to reverse that later, because if a bank thinks you can't make the payment and you're not going to be able to make it in the future, you've left them with only one option, and that is liquidation. Don't do that. Anytime you tell them anything, it needs to be based in the idea that it is not permanent as far as your loss of income. If you tell them, I permanently can't make the payment, they're going to say, really, great, sell the house before we take it. That's what they're going to tell you. That's going to be the only option to leave yourself, so don't do that. They're going to ask you details about your income, your expenses, and other assets, like how much cash do you have in the bank. Don't answer. Do not give the bank financial information over the phone. You do it in writing and only in writing. And if they demand that you answer over the phone, you just tell them, I am more comfortable doing this in writing because what you're asking me is a very complex question. It has to do with how if I'm going to be able to save my house or not. So it's kind of a big deal that I get it right. So I really want to make sure I get it right. And this is the next thing. You ask them for an RMA, a request for mortgage assistance. That is where those numbers go. You don't do them over the phone. And if a rep tells you, oh, we only do it over the phone. Oh, well, then I'll call you back when I have my accountant or my attorney available so we can go over it at that point. Trust me, every bank in the country doesn't have to do it over the phone. They will all take a written submission. Don't give numbers over the phone. I cannot stress that enough. Lastly, if you are a service member, if you are in the military, if you are currently serving in the U.S. military, tell them. There are special things that only military get to use. Same thing if you're a first responder, depending on the bank. Tell them because that may help a lot, especially if it's a permanent move and the military is making you move, then they have to help you out. So tell them. Ask your bank or servicer what options might be available. You ask them. Don't tell them. You don't know. Ask them to tell you and write them down. And if they don't give you an option that we know is available, they have got a problem they're going to have to fix. If you tell them, I need to save my house, and here's what I need you to do, it's not going to work. People go wrong primarily with this in one place over and over and over again. They approach the bank with what they need. I need a loan modification so I can keep my house. Laudable goal, but the bank doesn't care. The bank does not care what you need. They care what they need. So you have to talk to them in terms that they understand. I have a problem. I'm not making my mortgage payment. It is temporary. I will be happy to go over my financials with you in the proper format. I'll do it in writing and I'll send it in. That's how you do this sort of thing. But yeah, don't go to them with what you need. Go to them with what they need. That's how you and obviously you couch it in terms that are good for you. Otherwise, why bother? But that's how you get this done. You come to them with a plan that they can easily approve. You make it simple for them. Okay, so you fill out an RMA, which we talked about, request for mortgage assistance, and the key number there is what is your monthly income versus what is your monthly expenses. It's called a ratio, your back end versus front end ratio. How much money do you got coming in? How much do you got going out before you even see it? I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole with that, but basically a good rule of thumb is you need 2 to 3 times the amount of your mortgage. If your mortgage is $4,000 a month, you better be showing 8 to 12. If you have normal expenses. We go through that with clients all the time and get those groomed down because you know what the ratios are that they're looking at, which I want to bore you with because we've got a lot of show to get through and I want to touch more of this. If you want to know about ratios and that, just give me a call. I'll be happy to walk you through it. I'll be happy to help you put together the RMA. We do it all the time. Okay, now depending on the complexity of your situation, consider speaking to a real estate attorney. Always good luck. Always a good idea to talk to a real estate attorney. My wife's a real estate attorney. I talk to her on a daily basis. Sometimes more about real estate than I think she would like, but she's always a good sport about it. You can always talk to me. I can put you together with real estate attorneys. Maybe a question I can answer for you. Usually is, depending on what it is. And then last but not least, and this is super important, watch out for scams. When you stop making your mortgage payment and you're in financial trouble, especially if you have equity in a house, they come out of the woodwork. I have over 30 years, I have seen every scam, every dodge, everything you can possibly imagine. And I'm going to give you some warning signs. Here are what I think we got 10 warning signs about scams. So if you hear any of this stuff, you run the other direction. 1, you're being asked to pay upfront for help. It is not legal to charge upfront for mortgage relief help. The only people who can do that is attorneys. They can charge you a retainer, which they will then chew through. But you shouldn't be doing that either. So don't pay upfront for anything like this. I would say you shouldn't pay at all, but certainly don't pay upfront for mortgage relief. Beware of any company that guarantees it will get the terms of your mortgage changed. Beware of any company that guarantees you won't lose your home. I've been doing this for 34 years. I'm here to tell you, anyone who guarantees you results like that is lying to you. No one can make that guarantee. I'm an expert on this. I'm a nationally known expert on this. I've done more of these files than any 10 people you know. And I'm telling you, anyone who guarantees you that they can make you, that they have an outcome for you is lying. You just can't do it in these circumstances. You can't. So yeah, anyone who makes those promises. If you're asked to sign over the title to your home or sign other documents you don't understand, don't do that. No good comes from changing the title on your home. And if you don't understand a document, ask. Don't sign things you don't understand. If you're instructed to send your payment to someone other than your mortgage company or servicer, obviously do not send your mortgage payment to someone else. It's one of those popular scams that's been going on for the last 10 years. Send to us your mortgage payment and we'll hold it because you have to be behind in order to get a loan mod. All that's untrue. You should never ever do any of that, which leads us to the next one. If they tell you that you have to not make a mortgage payment so you can then qualify for relief, that's ridiculous. If you're current, you can still get relief. It's harder. They're less likely to do it. But you don't have to miss a mortgage payment to qualify for mortgage relief. That's bad advice. Banks say that too. That's just horrible advice. The company offers to do a forensic audit. You do not need a forensic audit. You don't even have the data to do a forensic audit. You need to get the number from the bank first. You're told to stop paying your mortgage payment. We just touched on that. Don't stop paying your mortgage payment voluntarily. It's never. If you have the money, pay the payment. The company says they're affiliated with the government or uses a logo that looks like government, but the seal is slightly different. That's a scam. They're pretending to be part of a government, and they're not. And they're just trying to do that to get your attention and get your money. It is a shakedown scam. You should never, ever participate in these things. Right away, just don't give people money up front. Don't do that. Don't give people money to do foreclosure defense. All scams stop. That solves all your problems right there. And if you are worried about any of this stuff, give me a call. I will be happy to help you. So let's get into some of the meat of this before we go to break. What do I recommend when fighting to save your home? Okay, there are 6 things you need to elicit from the bank. 6 things. And they're incredibly important. First thing you're going to ask for, you're going to write a qualified written request. Just means you're doing it in writing. That's all it does. It means you're doing it in writing. And you're going to ask the bank for 6 things. First thing you're going to ask them for is a copy of the note. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a copy. It doesn't matter if it's the original. As long as you get a copy, it's fine. This produce the note stuff, like they don't have the original signature, so they can't. That's nonsense. It's not true. Just ask them for a copy of the note so that they can prove the debt exists. Ask for an accounting going back to the inception of the note because they need to prove that the demand that they are asking for, the amount of money you're asking for, is correct. Ask for all assignments of the note. If If the note's been around for a while, it's probably not what the bank you took it out at. When it goes from bank A to bank B, that's called an assignment. If they can't produce the assignments, they don't have the right to enforce the note. So you want the note to prove that it exists, you want the accounting to prove that the amount they're asking is correct, and you want a copy of any assignments, because that's mostly where banks go wrong. And if they don't have the assignments, they're going to have a hard time collecting, and you're in good shape. If they do have the assignments, you want it to prove that they have the ability to enforce the note. Next thing to ask for, number 4, ask for the investor. It's usually a waste of time, because usually it's a nameless, faceless LLC or something. But occasionally you get a guy named Chuck, and you can talk to Chuck and see if you can sort this out. If not, it's just interesting information, but you're not going to be able to do much with it. Numbers 5 and 6, financial. Ask them for a copy of the payoff demand, so you know how much you owe to pay the loan off. Get it from them in writing. It can only be done in writing. And you want a reinstatement quote. What's it going to cost to put this loan right? So you want a payoff demand. What's it going to cost to pay this off? And in case you refi or do something else, you're going to need that. Plus, you just should know. You also want to see the fees they're charging. And a reinstatement quote. What's it going to cost to get this thing put right if I can't do anything else? You need those numbers. So those are the 6 things you need. And you ask for those with just a qualified written request. I walk people through these all the time. I write them on a daily basis. That's what you need to do. Now, once you have that data in, you look for a reversible error. I had one I talked about a lot. 14 years of mortgage, they were missing 11 years. They had 3 years of accounting. That was it. And they just assumed that the client had never made a payment. Well, they don't get to do that. You know, they have to prove it. The client doesn't have to prove it. The mortgage holder does not have to prove it. The bank does. So keep that in mind. If you look for a reversible error, you're not going to find it most of the time. I will tell you from experience, 99% of the time you won't find it. But that 1% of the time you do, very, very important. Plus, it puts the bank on notice that you're looking for the right stuff. So I'm going to give you a couple of pieces of advice that are incredibly important when doing this stuff. Number 1, as I said earlier, time is never on your side. Act promptly. Do not wait. Not a day, not a minute. Do not wait. Contact me, contact the bank, get the ball rolling. Time is never, ever on your side. Every day that goes by, if you're in foreclosure, the bank's case gets stronger and your case gets weaker. Never wait. Take good notes. Stay organized. Like I talked about earlier, write down who you talk to. And if you're not prepared to take notes, don't take the call. Know your rights. Look at the applicable. Look at the applicable laws, not the sovereign citizen nonsense. I mean the real laws that will actually help protect your house. I'm going to give you a list of them. Get those. Be prepared to counterpunch. Best advice I can give you. Do not go to fall apart if the bank turns you down. We have clients who routinely get down 2, 3, 4 times. We had one years ago. He was turned down 17 times. On the 18th go around, we got it done. That was 2008. It was a little different then. But don't be all that worried about it if they turn you down the first time. Just find out why and go fix that issue. My attitude when a client gets turned down is, oh, they got turned down for this issue, so they're good with all the other issues that you could have turned down for? Great, let's fix this one issue and get them a modification, whatever they need. So don't be afraid to counterpunch. You're always countering punch with a loan modification, with any further foreclosure defense. You're always counterpunching. Keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to give you 4 laws to look at in foreclosure defense. We're going to go to break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the 5th one, which is a big deal having to do with zombie mortgages. The 4 laws you need to look at. You just Google these. I'm just going to give you the top 4. 2 of them are going to be state, and 2 of them are federal. The first one you want to look at is the RESPA guidelines, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. By the way, all of this can be found at the CFPB's website. Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. The next one you want to look at is TILA, the Truth in Lending Act. And you want to ask yourself, has my lender comported with these 2 laws? Have they done anything that's against the law under RESPA or TILA? They probably have. Doesn't mean you get a free house, but it helps prepare your defense when you find that they've done things wrong. RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, TILA, the Truth in Lending Act. Those are the 2 big federal rules. There are others, but those are the 2 biggies. In California, we have something called the Homeowner Bill of Rights, Cal-HBOR. Incredibly important legislation. Came into being in 2010, has been revised several times. Most of your defense in California for foreclosure will be found in the California Homeowner Bill of Rights. And then, of course, the 4th one, which is our nice new spanking new law, great new baby law, AB 2424, Civil Codes 2923.5, 2923.55, 2924F, and 2932.2. Those are the ones you use, as we talked about earlier, to postpone a foreclosure for a sale. You don't necessarily have to sell the house, but you can use the prospective sale to give you more time to get this stuff fixed. Incredibly, incredibly important. So I tell you what, if you have a question about any of this stuff, you can always call me, 661-714-1400. That's my cell phone. You can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Szerman. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. We come back from the break. We're going We're going to talk about a new law that has specifically aimed at zombie mortgages. And we're going to talk about the most common mistakes the bank make that you can exploit to save yourself from foreclosure. So listen to the break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about that. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. Thanks. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. You've reached the Real Estate Fix on KHTS, FM 98.1 and 1220, your hometown station. Thank you guys for tuning in after the break for the third part of the show. This is probably the best part for me because there is a law that I've been waiting for the better part of 30 years. Those of you who know what a zombie foreclosure is, I've been fighting them for about that long. Zombie foreclosure, zombie lien, if you like, is a debt that you thought was paid off, dead, gone, bankruptcy, loan modification, whatever. Nobody's talked to you for, we used to say 10 years, now we say 3 years because of this new law. The bank hasn't talked to you, nobody's done anything to collect with 3 years or more. And they come back and they say, okay, remember that $50,000 loan that you took out? This is a true story, that you took out 19 years ago? Yeah, we'd like you to give us $300,000 approximately now. And if you don't give it to us in the next 90 days, we're taking your house. Yeah, we know that if we come after you 10 years ago, your house had no equity and we wouldn't have been able to collect. In fact, you could have filed a bankruptcy and wiped out the debt if you'd done it 10 years ago. But you didn't, and now your house has equity. And by the way, thank you very much for paying down that first mortgage. That was very nice of you to do to make more equity for us. Oh, no, it's not for you, it's for us. Because not only are we going to try to enforce the face value of the loan, in this example, $50,000 19 years ago, but we're also going to enforce all the back due payments, all the back due fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is how your $50,000 debt that they've done nothing to collect has been through 5, 6, 7, 10 banks. No one said a word to you. You may have even gotten a letter in the mail that said your debt has been discharged, no further payments are necessary. I have a number of clients who got those, especially between 2008 and 2012. Doesn't mean the same thing. That debt still exists. Lien still exists, and they're still going to come after you for it. And it's immoral, it's unethical, and it's just wrong. And I used to have to say it's legal, but it's unethical. It's immoral. Now it's not legal anymore. AB 130. We did a whole show on this a couple weeks ago with Jane, who came in as the guest. It's nice for her to do that because she's the attorney and the brain's the outfit. So AB 130, now known as Civil Code Section 2924.13. If you have a second, a third, a fourth, a junior loan, this doesn't apply to first mortgages. If you have a junior loan, please do yourself a favor and look up Civil Code Section 2924.13. It's the zombie second rule. And what you will find is there are 6 things that before were legal that are now 100%. They are an illegal act if the bank has committed them. Number 1, failing to communicate in writing with the borrower about the loan for at least 3 years. At any 3-year period, presumably during the life of the loan. Now, we don't know yet because this one and AB 2020 have not been adjudicated yet. Their cases make their way through the courts now, I'm sure. And a year or so from now, we'll get some guidance on the courts. But we don't have case law yet, so we just have to use it. The banks don't have it either, so everybody's kind of confused. So now is the time to deal with these things because there's a lot of room to run because nobody really knows where it's going to come down. So number 1, if they have failed to communicate with you for 3 years or more, or any 3-year span during the life of that loan, they cannot foreclose. Now, the debt still exists, but they cannot foreclose. It is an illegal act. If they fail to provide notice of loan servicing, or if they fail to provide notice of loan ownership transfers, illegal act. They cannot foreclose. Number 4, foreclosing or threatening to foreclose after advising the borrower that the loan was written off, charged off, or discharged, including sending an IRS Form 1099. If that's the case, you want to talk to my friend Lou Esmond, a bankruptcy attorney, about it because he's got some interesting thoughts on that. You may not have to pay them at all, but they cannot foreclose if they've done that. Foreclosing or threatening to foreclose after the statute of limitations has expired. In California, up until this law, the statute of limitations was 60 years, 67 if you want to be generous about it. So that's probably not going to happen. But that's the law now, too. Some loans are shorter. And this is the big one. Failing to provide accounting statements when required to do so by law. Now, the law that governs when they have to provide accounting statements is basically once every 30 days, is contained in Civil Code 1026.41, 1026.41. That's the other one you need because you need to prove they haven't sent you a statement in the time that they're supposed to. And if they haven't done that in more than 3 years, or even if they haven't done it on a monthly basis, they cannot foreclose. Now, the debt still exists, but they can't foreclose, which means they can't threaten you. They can't strong arm you into giving them what they want. This is a big, big deal. So if you have a zombie second, if you think you have a zombie second, for goodness sake, call me, I'll check. It takes 10 seconds to pull a title profile and check. But you need to know because this is how you fight that. And I want to thank the governor. I don't see eye to eye with the governor on a lot of things, but this was fantastic. This was snuck in the middle of the night in a law that was supposed to be about rolling back environmental restrictions so people could build. And this code section is huge. It changes everything with with zombie mortgages. We now have a real decent legal defense to put an end to this scourge. This was costing people their equities, costing their retirements. It was ruining people's lives. Also, some bottom feeders could make extra money. That industry is going to go to pieces now in California, and this is just the first major weapon we've had in that fight. We need more, but it's the first big weapon we've had in that fight. So I'm going to really quickly go through this because we're wrapping up the show here. Here are some common mistakes that mortgage banks make. We see these mistakes all the time. I got 10 of them for you. If your bank has made any of these mistakes during a foreclosure procedure, you can use this to leverage a better deal out of them. You can use this to defend yourself. If the bank has failed to communicate with you properly, that's number one. They fail to communicate all the time. Hard to prove, though, but you can't. That's why you do everything in writing. That's why you don't do stuff over the phone if you can avoid it. Not processing your loss mitigation application properly. We see that on almost every file. Almost every file. They make mistakes constantly. Telling you that you have to be in default to get to qualify for modification. Horribly bad advice. It's illegal in most states. No one can tell you not to make your mortgage payment. And a bank telling you not to make your mortgage payment so you then qualify for help is ridiculous. I'm drowning, and so you want me to tie bricks to my feet so then you'll help me stop me from drowning? It's going to make me drown faster. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But they will sometimes give you that. That's common advice. It goes back to 2008. I've been dealing with the first government intervention, trying to fix this stuff, the first homeowner bill of rights. It was just a disaster, and the banks took it wrong. So we still hear that on occasion, but they cannot tell you not to make your mortgage payment. If they do, find out who it was, write down the note. You can definitely use that as leverage to help save your house. Requiring you to resubmit information that you've already sent to the servicer over and over and over and over again. Totally common practice. But that's why I'm here. If I have your file, you submit the paperwork to me. We go over it first, of course. We submit it to the lender. If the lender loses it, I'm a third party who submitted it to you. You're only going to get away with that so many times because I can prove that I sent it. We are very careful about this. This happens on a regular basis. Using incorrect information in processing the net present value or making other calculation errors. And when a bank turns you down, they have to tell you why. And they can't just say just because. They have to provide the data. They have to provide the raw data. Because often what you'll find is they turned you down because they were wrong. Because they decided you made $6,000 a month instead of $16,000. That's a true story. Failing to convert a trial modification to a permanent modification. Got 2 of those in my office right now. Completed the trial period. The bank said, do it for 4 more months. Do it for 3 more months. It's not the way this works. Trial periods are 3 months long. Once you complete it, if you do what you're supposed to do, the bank's got to do what they need to do. That's the rule. And the case law in California will follow all of that. Failing to honor a modification agreement after a servicing transfer. We realize you made a deal with Bank of America, but we here at Wells Fargo have your loan now, and that doesn't count. They're not allowed to do that. First bank makes a deal with you, second bank has to honor it. Failing to offer available alternatives. That's why you ask them. That's why you don't tell them. That's why you ask. Because if they fail to offer you available alternatives, you can use that as a defense. And we all know what all the banks have to offer. I do anyway. Call me anytime. Failing to provide calculations of a loss mitigation request is denied. I've got one of these right now. The bank's going to hurt over this one today. They have to provide the calculations. You can't just say we turned you down just because. You don't meet our guidelines. Well, why don't we meet your guidelines? Just because. No, not sufficient. You got to provide the numbers. That's the law. Both federal and state. You must provide the numbers. And if you don't, we got a whole new complaint. And this is my personal favorite, which we see on a regular basis, lying to the borrowers regarding the availability of help or the requirements for same. Banks lie. They lie every day, and they sleep just fine. Sometimes it's a lie of omission because they're not telling you something they should. Sometimes it's a lie of ignorance because they don't know what they should tell you. And sometimes it's malicious. But the bottom line is the same. Banks lie. So I say this all the time. I lie to the banks constantly. When the banks decided to start treating my clients honestly and openly, that will be a great day and I will do the same. But I'm not getting into a fight that I'm guaranteed to lose for a client because I'm telling the truth and they're not. You know, every foreclosure defense is a street fight. It's metaphorically speaking. It's a nasty, eye-gouging, hair-pulling type street fight. There's no Marcus of Queenberry rules with this. You fight until the fight is done. That's how you get through a loan modification. That's how you do foreclosure defense. You fight until there's no fight left. Until either you've won or they're dead. One of the two. Otherwise, you're just giving up. So if you have a problem with that, give me a call. I kind of went through the last bit, but I'm here to help. We do foreclosure defense. We do it for free. We do it all the time. I can be reached at 661-714-1400. That number again, 661-714-1400. My name is Rich Szerman. My last name is spelled a little funny. If you want to look me up, you'll see all sorts of stuff I've done in the media over the years, fight cases we fought that got on the news, etc. Or you can go to my snazzy new website. My last name is spelled funny. It's S-Z as in zebra, S-Z-E-R-M-A-N. It's pronounced Sherman. My first name is Rich. Have a good time with that. Call me up. I'll help you out anytime I can. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning into the show. I hope this did you some good. For those of you who aren't listening to this live, you can get it on YouTube if you listen to it in the future. I hope this helps. Bottom line, give me a call. I'll walk you through any of this. Even if you're outside California, I can help you with a little bit. But in California, I'm your guy. 661-714-1400. My name's Rich Szerman. You've been listening to The Real Estate Fix on KHTS, AM 1220, FM 98.1, your hometown station. Have a good weekend. Be good humans. See you soon.